Coming up on today's episode, I want to round up some of the final rumors, chatter, buzz out there leading up to the NFL draft, including a possible trade for the Broncos. And then we're going to look at some interior defensive line targets because I really think this could be Denver's plan B in the draft. And I want you guys to be good Boy Scouts and be prepared for this possibility. Now, first thing first, can we get 25 new subscribers on today's episode? Earlier this week, we picked up 52 new subscribers off of Monday's video. So if you haven't yet, scroll on down, lock yourself in for the best Broncos draft content out there. Now, let's talk about a topic I don't really enjoy discussing, which is trading good players away. But could the Broncos trade John Franklin Meyers? Let's just, wet our beak a little bit in this possibility because Pro Football Network tossed out this possibility of the Broncos have a pair of big defensive line contracts coming up in Nick Bonitto and Zach Allen, who are both free agents next offseason. That will squeeze some players out by necessity, as Denver won't be able to pay everyone on their number one ranked defense. John Franklin Meyers, another starting defensive lineman entering the last year of his deal in 2025, also falls into that category. So, could we see Denver flip JFM just one season after trading for him? I don't think there's like a 0% chance of happening, just given the constraints that Denver has to work within. They've given out some nice contracts to players on their roster already, but they've got, as PFN pointed out, paydays coming up for Zach Allen and Nick Bonitto, and two players I expect to be higher up on the priority list for a new contract. And Franklin Meyers comes off quietly a really good season. And it's a shame that it's quiet, but when you're on the number one pass rushing defense and you've got stars like Zach Allen and Nick Bonitto going into contract years, the timing is just not right for JFM, who comes off a 7-sack campaign. Pro Football Focus ranked him 12th out of 118 qualifying defensive ends. So just a little bit, I wouldn't say a bad luck of JFM, but maybe a little bit like wrong place, wrong time. As crazy as that might sound, if he was on any other team with a 7-sack season like that going into the final year of his contract, he'd probably be towards the top of the to-do list. Unfortunately for him, he's not as young as Nick Bonitto and not as good, to be honest, as Zach Allen. So someone's going to get passed over. And if the Broncos feel like, hey, Franklin Meyers is someone that we just don't see giving a long-term deal to, they could. Look what they got for him in the first place. They traded a future 6th-round draft pick. They could flip him for a 5th, get 1 year of work out of him, 7 sacks, go to the draft, find a younger, cheaper replacement, and go, hey, thanks for the 7 sacks. Thanks for the better draft pick than we gave up to acquire you in the first place. And it's business, so we're going to unfortunately have to deal you now, find your replacement in this year's draft, and have more money allocated to other players like Zach Allen and Nick Bonitto before you walk next year in free agency. I don't think this is something that has a high chance of happening, but I think it's a situation to monitor, at least during the draft. You may not have noticed, but if you have, we haven't seen a single trade happen in the first round yet. This is the first time in NFL history we've gotten this close to round 1, and not one pick has been moved. And I think that speaks volumes to the draft class in general. It's not a very loaded draft class, to be brutally honest. And no one wants to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I love the draft. So being told this is not a very good class takes a little bit of fun out of it. But if teams feel that way, they may look to veterans instead of this draft class here to fulfill some of their roster needs. But JFM, wherever he plays in 2025, I expect to be a really productive player. You can just look at some of the, advanced analytics. 14.4 pressure rate, which ranked 13th out of 159 qualifying players. Shout out to Moose for this awesome stat here. So I could see a team looking at JFM and thinking, hey, we've got some other fish to fry in the draft, and we just couldn't quite get to a defensive end, a pass rusher, as early as we would have liked. Denver, we saw you took one in round 2. Could we give you a future 5th for JFM? He's going to be a free agent, and if you don't plan on extending him, why not get a draft pick for him now? And if you're the Broncos, I don't think you want to trade Franklin Meyers. I don't think that's something you're actively seeking. but I think that it's someone that if a phone call comes in for, you're going to listen, right? And there are a lot of phone calls made during the draft about players' availability. So at the end of the day, do you feel like this is fact or fiction, right? Does this have any legs to it, or is this just smoke? Which, to be honest, it's probably not best for me to say this during knowing my job, but there is a lot of smoke that comes out during the pre-draft process and leading up to it. But when you've got a player who's, closing in on 30, entering a contract season, towards the bottom of the priority list when it comes to extensions, in a draft class loaded with talent at that same position, you'd be naive if you did not acknowledge that it's got, greater than a 0% chance of happening. All right, before we move on, next up I want to talk about some final draft targets at the defensive tackle spot. I'm not going to give necessarily like my personal rankings, but more about targets for rounds 1, 2, 3, and even 4, because I do believe Denver will be taking a DT earlier rather than later in the draft. So let's look at this through the lens of what I think Sean and George Payton would do, not what I would do. And I think Derrick Harmon from Oregon could really catch their eye. The top 2 interior guys that are expected to go in the middle of round 1 is Harmon and Ole Miss's Walter Nolan. But I could see Harmon maybe catching Denver's eye a little bit closer. He's 6'4", 313 pounds, and he led all interior defensive linemen with 55 pressures. Usually when you get someone north of 310, the catch is, hey, they're going to be good against the run, they're going to eat up blockers, they're going to free up linebackers, but they're not going to get to the quarterback. Harmon had 55 pressures last year. He had no problem getting to the quarterback for his size. Now, when you get the big fellas like that, the weight can almost become like their biggest Achilles heel, since if it gets too big, they really can't have a sustainable weight and keep the conditioning up and be on the field enough to have a big enough impact on the game. But Harmon, with that size and with his showcase in 2024 with Oregon, that could be a real big target for Denver at 20 if, say, Omarion Hampton's gone and maybe like their number 1 receiver they were also thinking is taken as well. Personally, I want to go offense at number 20. The defense is great, and there's a lot of good defenders in this draft, and you can wait for a defensive tackle who we'll look at in a moment here in rounds 2 or 3. I want to go get Omarion Hampton. Now, if he's not there, then you have to adjust. But for now, that's plan A. Before we move on to the other defensive tackles to keep an eye on for this draft, I want to give a big special shout out to a new sponsor of ours here, and that is House of Atlas. They gifted us one of their razors, and honestly, I'm kind of blown away. Not only does it look insanely sleek sitting in my bathroom, but it gives me an incredibly close shave. It feels weird to gush over a lineup of shaving products, but truly House of Atlas makes some one-of-a-kind stuff. Now, they're giving Broncos Country 15% off your first order when you use code CHAT at houseofatlas.com. Now, I've grown out my beard a little bit. I wouldn't say it's anything to brag over, but when you come back, which I know you will for the NFL draft, you will see baby bottom soft face thanks to House of Atlas. And now for a limited time, they are offering 15% off your first order when you use code CHAT at houseofatlas.com. When you purchase any razor kit and the before and after set, which includes the precision shave cream and calming aftershave, use code CHAT at houseofatlas.com for that 15% off savings. Once again, use code CHAT for 15% off your new razor kit and before and after set. Stop wasting money and time on shaving products that don't look good, aren't effective, and cost way too much. Visit houseofatlas.com. That's houseofatlas.com with promo code CHAT. Trust me, you'll love it as much as I did. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. So let's get back to some defensive tackle targets. And I know that's not the most sexy position group, but man, Denver could have used some more of those guys when they were playing in Buffalo in the playoffs. So if Denver decides we're not going to go with one in round 1, how about day 2 of the draft? I got a couple of options here. Let's start with Toledo's Darius Alexander. He's been garnishing a ton of pre-draft attention, Not as big as Harmon. He's 6'4", 305 pounds. But I will note that when it comes to weight, it probably doesn't fluctuate much for like wide receivers or quarterbacks. For the big fellas, it can go up and down drastically. Now, he played a lot of football in Toledo. 6 seasons. He started the last 2. Run stopping is really what jumps out the most when looking at his game. He had 8 tackles for loss, 40 tackles altogether. He's just someone that can penetrate, right? He's someone that can push the pocket a little bit, who can make quarterbacks uncomfortable. I don't think he is one of the top pass rushing defensive tackles in this class, but he is a disruptor. That's really the best way I can put it, right? He is someone that's going to make offensive linemen hate breaking the huddle. Those are good players to have on your team. Now, is this a target Matthew Peterson, would pursue? To be honest, no. I don't think that I'm seeing the same level of hype as some other analysts out there are. But when you get that much attention, when you play at Toledo, you're doing something right to get round 2 eyeballs on you. So Darius Alexander, the Toledo Rocket, is someone just to watch for in day 2 of the draft. I think he's going to be more like a day 3 guy. So if Denver decides to go, say, running back, tight end, or some kind of combination of that in the first 2 rounds, Alexander could be there in round 3. Another guy who I think could be there in round 3, but I would not mind getting in round 2, is Alfred Collins, the Texas defensive tackle. He is one of the best pure athletes in this class, pound for pound. Way bigger than the previous 2 guys we looked at. 6'6", 332. He's got great athletic, just traits and instincts. He's got a knack for being in the right position at the right time. So what's the catch? He was a huge recruit for the Longhorns, and he didn't really make his way onto the field in a meaningful and full-time capacity until year 5. A bit of a late bloomer, and when you look at that, you got to ask yourself, is this Alfred Collins being a great prospect, or is this a 5th year that's just picking on sophomores and juniors who just, anatomy-wise, aren't as developed as someone, who's in the 5th year of college is? But I'm willing to look past that and be very content with Collins in round 2 for the Broncos. It is a name that I have been, screaming for the mountaintops for a while. Here's a good quote from an anonymous NFC personnel director claiming Collins can, quote, become the best interior player in this class. He really only started 1 year, which you can look at as a negative, or you can look at all the facts and not just in a vacuum and realize when Byron Murphy, 1st-round pick last year from Seattle, and Tavondre Sweat, 2nd-round pick last year by the Titans, are on your team and play your position, it's not going to be easy to break through the glass ceiling and get onto the field. So I'm willing to factor those things in and go, hey, there's a 330-pound, 6'6". Just when you look at the traits and the mold to work with there, that is by far the most exciting defensive tackle in this class. You just got to capture everything that he has in him and get the best out of him. And that's where coaching comes into play. And I think Vance Joseph and Sean Payton are capable of that. 4th guy I'm going to throw at you is a round 3 to 4 target, and it is Florida State's Joshua Farmer. So if Denver decides to hold off on adding some interior guys, this is someone maybe in the middle of the draft to keep an eye on. Not as big as the first 3 guys we looked at. Really the smallest. 6'3", 305 pounds. He's not a nose tackle. If you're looking to get a new DJ Jones, if you're like, hey, we have enough pass rushers, can we just get a true tree stump in the middle? That's not Farmer. He played a little bit of 2-eye and 3 technique for anyone out there that likes to get in the weeds of defensive line allotment, but he is probably going to be a 3 technique at best when it comes to how close he ever gets to the center at the next level. Last year for the Seminoles, 4 sacks, 26 pressures. So at this day and age of where the NFL is at, when we're talking interior guys, you got to bring some pass rush to the table. It's just the worst place for a quarterback to get pressure from, up the middle. And while you do want to have the ability to stop the run with passing going up and running going down, unfortunately, the trade-off is pure run stoppers just don't quite get the love that they used to get early in the draft. So what round do you think the Broncos should address this need? I think you can make fair, solid arguments for rounds 1 through 4, right? It really probably just comes down to who's available and when. If Omarion Hampton is not there at pick 20, I'd be very content with going DT. I like the idea of waiting for Alfred Collins in round 2 and getting someone else in round 1. I think that could put together the best combination. So I'll toss out round 2, round 3 as well, but let's look at 2 specifically. All right. I think that's going to do it for us on today's show. If you haven't noticed, we are just pumping out content like a pistol engine right now. So make sure you are subscribed. Don't miss a single thing when it comes to Denver's, pre-draft process here at the Broncos Breakdown.